Berserk Banzai, all in the middle, baby. Yeah! Feral definitely getting some great changes. Although we talked about him on stream, I do want to point out because Feral seems to have the fattest div post. So we kind of talked about the general talent tree already, and for anybody who hasn't seen it yet, we have this on our Boomkin coverage. Not gonna go through that again, which are actually 100% good, I feel. All the talent swaps. Feral starts now with Rake and Rip, which is good, although it's the thing is you need improved swipe now. So you kind of have to put 2 points into swipe to get the same value from the previous 1 point into swipe, but we'll see how that turns out. But you do get a point back from stuff like, what is it called again? Killer Instinct and or Nurturing Instinct. Although I don't know if Ferals take Nurturing Instinct that much. I don't know if it's even worth it. What would you use this for? The Lunar Inspiration Moonfire procs? Everything else is pretty much physical, right? Or I guess there are some instance of nature damage, I suppose. But anyway, to correct Feral's dependency issues, we've moved the talents that modify Berserk into a triangle under the core Berserk talent. We've repositioned Tear Open Wounds, putting it behind Double Claw Rake, because in mass AoE situations where you'll want Tear Open Wounds, you'll generally also want Double Clawed Rake. How does it look now? So this is Tear Open Wounds, Double Clawed Rake. This is the PTR version, the changed one. It should, yes, this is the changed one. So the Berserk ones are actually really good. This is so funny to look at. Okay, so you don't have to like really go to super to the sides to get all of the Berserk upgrades, which, I mean, it's weird. Would you ever skip one? I suppose, because if you would ever skip one, then this would make sense. Otherwise, you'd always get them anyway. Well, we may want you to make choices in your talent tree. The option to skip your major survivability cooldown in exchange for more DPS isn't really one of them. Yep, Feral and other specs that include major survivability cooldowns in their spec tree are generally tuned with the assumption you're taking those talent. That's why Ferals are squishy. To reinforce the importance of survival instincts, we're moving it above Berserk, meaning that you're likely not going to be able to skip it, right? Yes, survival instincts actually goes into Berserk. Once again, this is not a choice then. So part of the talent system will always have the necessity of you having mandatory specific things 100% of the time. Blizzard wants you to have certain things, like for instance, you're never going to be able to play Feral without Tiger's Fury, which is the most obvious option. You could skip this entire part of the tree, I believe. I don't think there's a problem with you never having to take survival instincts and then by and large not taking any of this stuff, but I don't know why you would, because the argument is like, you know, people don't want people can play Feral without taking major stuff, because he'll take it, but obviously unless you're memeing or trolling, you should probably never skip these. The AoE build options. We like the power of Feral Bleeds and are happy that there is an AoE build that allows you to just cast Primal Wrath, but we don't want it to be the only option. Yes, more options, don't nerf it, as it locks in a lot of choices. To make builds that don't reapply dots so frequently more viable, we're boosting the power of Ferocious Bite in single target and AoE, and pulling back the power of Rip. Okay, they are nerfing Rip and Rake a bit, especially in AoE. This also somewhat increases Feral's power to funnel damage into a priority. Okay, Lunar Inspiration has been a challenge to find an appropriate place for Lunar Inspiration. It adds a button to the rotation and another dot to track, not to mention it helps with blood talents, and if I'm not mistaken, it's the cheapest combo point generator, aka helping with the energy starvation as well. Because of that increased complexity, one extra button, we don't want it to feel required for all players. I don't think it is. I don't think a lot of people still use it now. However, the current reduced power version also isn't meeting the needs of players who do want to play it. To address this, we've moved it to a choice node with Feral Frenzy at the bottom of the talent tree and restored its former power. How is this? This makes it possible to pick it up also with the talents that synergize well with, but also gives the players that don't want to play it plenty of other powerful options. Okay, so how is making Feral Inspiration a more compelling choice or a stronger choice if it's being moved? If you have to give up Feral Frenzy for it, how is making Lunar Inspiration a stronger option for people who pick it? If you would pick it, wouldn't you also pick Feral Frenzy. I feel like Feral Frenzy is played right now in almost all of the builds, right? So how... Why make it a choice node? Why do I have to sacrifice something? How is it rewarding to play Lunar Inspiration if I have to sacrifice Feral Frenzy? How is the value of this higher now? Maybe I'm tripping. Circle of Life and Death damage over time duration compression reduced to 20%. I assume this is the AoE bleed nerf that they mentioned. Taste for Blood bonus Ferocious Bite damage increased to 4 and 8 per bleed instead of 2. So this has been doubled, actually, the power of the talent. Rampant Ferocity damage increased to 35%, up from 25%. Okay. Dreadful Bleeding bonus rip damage reduced to 15, down from 20. Effective Wounds bonus to rake damage reduced to 25 from 30. Vein Ripper increases to bleed duration increased to 33% from 25%. Lunar Inspiration damage increased by 66%. Okay, so this is how it looks. Can I make this bigger? So Lunar Inspiration is there. Wait, these were supposed to be 1-pointers. Did they go back on these? Sudden Ambush and Taste for Blood were supposed to be 1-pointers. Did they go back on this? Background pattern. Description automatically generated. Tear Open Wounds move to 04. Survival Instincts move to 05. Berserk, Moment of Clarity, Berserk. Survival. Okay, so this is all the things that have been moved. Is this not taken into consideration the changes that they mentioned by having these 1-pointers? I feel like their choice of putting Lunar Inspiration as a choice and not Feral Frenzy. Wait, is this old? This is fairly old. Okay. So, among all of these changes, we're also having the talents readjusted. So, this should be the final iteration. I feel like this is how it's going to be. Moment of Clarity, swipe deals increased damage, survival instincts. So they're keeping the Berserk situation here. They're making sudden ambush 1-pointers. Now you can still have Lunar Inspiration. And if we're going to assume you're going to be playing similar in AoE, you're probably going to build something like this, maybe. If you're taking swipe extra damage or brutal slash, you might want to take that also. Moment of Clarity. Vein Reaper has been buffed. They should last longer. So you maybe that's what's gonna happen next. Frantic Momentum. Circle of Life and Death has been nerfed, so maybe you don't want this as much. What if you take Incarn? So maybe you don't want this and you go like this. Maybe? Obviously, there's a lot more things that you can do. You're probably, if you're gonna go for Taste for Blood, maybe you're actually gonna take Rampant Ferocity instead. And obviously, you probably won't take Lunar Inspiration unless you're taking Blood Talents as well. They went back on this. So basically, this is actually the latest iteration of the talents, which I think it's actually really good. This definitely condenses the talent. So we're seeing with all of the talent changes that we're seeing, there's a consistent pattern where the middle part of the talent tree has like baseline cooldowns. In this case, also defensives, but offensives as well. It was weird to have Berserk split into so many nodes, because prior to this, Berserk had the functionality of all of them. I don't know how I feel about this, because it feels like you're always going to take these three, right? Moment of Clarity is really good. It's a 1-pointer. Heart of the Lion is really good, and you sacrifice minimal stuff for it. The only question is like how deep you go into the sides now. Yeah, and Incarn is really good. Convoke is probably a PvP thing, although it would be interesting to see if there will be builds that include Convoke as well. If you are going, maybe you don't take Finisher Soul of the Forest and you take Blood Talents, then Lunar Inspiration would make sense. But then this feels like it's going to go slightly more towards single target, so maybe you probably don't want Rampant Ferocity in single target, clearly. But then energy cost of Ferocious Bite is reduced. This was also buffed, so Rip has a 4% chance to make your Ferocious. If you're gonna go like a Ferocious Bite style build, what would you sacrifice? It feels like you would probably want Apex. Maybe you won't get Feral Frenzy and you'll take Rampant Ferocity. And maybe you sack one of these. I don't know if that would be viable. And do you even use Lunar Inspiration AoE? Probably not, right? I mean, it's a good generator for Blood Talents, but do you even have the time to put it up? Do you even want to manage the Moonfire dots? So you might go like this, right? So you would have Rampant Ferocity, Taste for Blood, Relentless Predator, and Apex giving you like a bite style playstyle, which could be interesting to see. Depends on how much the nerf to Circle of Life and Death means. I assume they wanted to just adjust the playstyle, but I cannot feel like it's also nerfed to the overall damage. Maybe because taking the build that we do now, nerf it, and then put in another build option. Finishing moves just per combo point spent to make your next break or shred deal damage. Maybe you wouldn't take Sudden Ambush actually, but then what you would take? Infected Wounds. If you take Double Claw Rake, maybe. I'm thinking if there's a way you would still take Circle of Life and Death. I don't know. Vein Ripper's AoE. I don't know if that's AoE because you keep reapplying rips. I don't know if that matters. Okay, well, definitely it's looking a little bit more interesting, and we're seeing that the talent trees that were a little bit iffy, although Feral was still good, are getting iterated upon throughout the Dragonflight, and we'll probably see something really consistent and fleshed out by the end of the expansion, which is really nice. Berserk Banzai, all in the middle, baby. Yeah!
I've been loving it then, I still love it now. Still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. Getting better every day, let me show you how. Cause still, I play WoW. Still, I play WoW. It's getting harder to stay, but at the end of the day, it's a guilty pleasure, so just log in and play. Whether it's classic or retail, I'ma do a /bow. Still, I play WoW.